Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is episode 130 of the Meet the Farmers podcast, and I'm your host, Ben Eagle. Now, all this week, and last, of course, it's been the COP26 conference in Glasgow. And as such a significant event, particularly potentially for farming and the countryside, I couldn't go this week without addressing it. Coincidentally, the Nature Friendly Farming Network has recently published its Rethink Farming report, which addresses many of the issues being discussed at COP. And so I'm joined to discuss both of these by Martin Lyons, who is the UK chair of the Nature Friendly Farming Network and a Cambridgeshire farmer, of course. Martin, it's great to have you back on the show. Really good to see you again. How are things on the farm in Cambridgeshire?
Yeah, very good. And a lot kinder autumn this year that's allowed us to do the work we needed to rather than puddling around in mud and rain.
Yeah, let's hope it's the start of a good farming year. Let's start with COP. What has been your take on the conference so far?
I think we've had some really good announcements and the directions around coal and some finance and a bit. But I do feel slightly disheartened. They're always looking for technological solutions, not practical solutions. And it's about stuff we're going to invent in years to come or deliver in years to come. We have a climate and biodiversity emergency. And where is the energy urgency of delivering change now and explaining to citizens, us, the changes we need to deliver? So I think they really are missing out the trick of what the landscape and nature-based solutions can actually deliver quick and easy, relatively easy solutions to capture carbon and put it back into soil or material. So I think it's really positive, but I do think they're really missing some areas out.
Yeah, we're recording this on Thursday the 4th. You're actually going up to Glasgow tomorrow. Just tell us a little bit about NFFN and NFFN's presence at the conference.
So we've got a number of. So we're attending. We should be there. We've had a number of farmers from mainly in Scotland, but in Northern England, attending sessions and talking and doing loads of meetings. We're up there. We've got some more sessions to do over the weekends, and great opportunity to connect with other organisations and other countries. And that's what a lot of it's going to be about. All those side meetings and negotiations, and hopefully sharing the passion what the network has of showing solutions of what we can deliver and demonstrate that to others. And there's opportunities after COP to do similar things with legislators and policymakers of other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of influencing, what are your hopes in terms of getting those farming messages across to the non-farming delegates?
Demonstrating what we can do, what many farmers are already doing, and that thing of most of it's quick, easy wins. We need to align some policy and connect consumers with their food and their landscape. And it's a win-win. We win-win for biodiversity, profitability on the farm, nature-based solutions, carbon capture. We could do this quite easily and quite rapidly if we shifted, and it could have worked the same across all of the farm landscape across the globe. And all farm landscapes need to recover nature and tackle the climate crisis they've got.
I hope that message comes across loud and clear. I'm sure it will. So the network put together a letter to the UK government in advance of COP, which outlined a few requests, including providing clarity. How is Her Majesty's government doing on that front so far, do you think?
So within the government, they've got wonderful ambitions and targets, but a lot of it's distant stuff, and we don't see the bigger picture. So we could break that down into the devolved governments is what's the landscape framework vision that they want to see? They have targets for trees and water management and peat management. But as farmers, what's that look like? What's the vision? Are they thinking? Governments do not want to do a top-down approach, but they need to give us a framework of actually what they think may need to happen to deliver climate and nature-based solutions. And that's what we are trying to encourage them to do more of, not just schemes that are happening in 5 to 10 years. What does 10 and 20, even 30 years down the line, when we've put 30,000 hectares of trees in every year? What's that kind of working farmed landscape available for public access, food production, nature benefits, carbon benefits? What's that going to look like?
Yeah. With all that in mind, let's turn towards your Rethink Farming document, which is, and I'm quoting it, it's a practical guide for farming, nature, and climate. And having read a little bit of it, I concur, listeners, do have a look at it. Go ahead to the NFFN website. It is very practical in nature. Why did the network feel the need to put this together?
We always try and do those positive outcomes and demonstrating what farmers already are or can do within the landscape. So we picked out like water, soil, biodiversity, carbon management, agroforestry, landscape approaches, food, and prosperity. They're the key things that we need to focus on as farmers, and we can deliver solutions on. And by having this report and showing practical solutions and demonstrating what farmers are already doing and how we can align better visions from government, policy, people's supply, consumers' purchasing power and supply chains, and actually over the next sort of 5, 10, 20 years, do a rapid transition to an actually more nature-friendly farming landscape that delivers solutions for society, governments, and for farmers.
Yeah, I mean, you've alluded to this already a little bit already, but farmers are experiencing a bit of a perfect storm, aren't they, at the moment? And it can seem a little bit overwhelming sometimes with the nature crisis, climate crisis, numerous financial and business pressures alongside. Recently, talking about inflation. How do farmers still find focus at times like this when there are so many issues to tackle? And also, and I'm also going to add on to this question, taking COP, for example, where we're focusing a lot on climate, how do we make sure that all of the other issues are there alongside and we keep the discussion, I suppose, in a holistic way?
And that's one of the reasons we did the report, because it's all stitched together. You can't just focus on trees or carbon or biodiversity. The landscape's an interconnected, holistic management system. And how do we support farmers in thinking not just of how do they get through their business every day, next financial year, but what is government and society asking them to deliver in the future? For some, that might be a little bit less food production, but more trees, more biodiversity. So where's the revenue come from to make sure they're a healthy business that can stay in focus? And it's about delivering those solutions in a whole joined up approach, rather than picking individual targets and announcing wonderful things, but not for farmers to understand how will that affect my business? Where do I play my part with managing my piece of landscape within my business control? So I often think as farmers, as asset managers, what do the assets to society want me to do? Food's always going to be important, but it's good and healthy food. Biodiversity, water quality, prosperity, carbon management. How do I fit that into my farming business? And we see so much pressure coming at farmers, telling them they're doing it wrong, the methane, the livestock, the meats, whatever. Actually, we need to cut through some of that. And livestock's not bad. Livestock done the wrong way is very bad. And in most counts, it's in other countries. So why can't we connect the consumer with that best practice livestock production? But also as an arable farmer, I want to move away from artificial fertilizers, and I'm already doing that, to reduce my carbon footprint and move away from fossil fuels. I need manures or compost to fertilize. So how do we integrate, rather than saying livestock's bad, we reintroduce a whole farm approach of putting livestock in the right place, managing water quality, manures, and biodiversity. And it's so more complicated than some policymakers and governments just announce single targets.
Yeah.
And that's the point of the report, was to make sure it's all interconnected. It's chapters, and all the chapters make a book. And if we deliver the book, we deliver positive outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, just going through some of those various aspects, soil, water, biodiversity, carbon management, and you outline those practical measures that farmers can take along that. I think this is a really great approach. But again, focusing on the farmers themselves, why is that useful for farmers without stating the obvious?
Many of those things can actually be a business benefit. They can be, if we get our soil health improved, actually with the change of climate that's coming and wetter and drier periods, actually our business will be more resilient. Our landscapes will be more resilient. So it's about putting the win-wins together and highlighting some of the negative things we don't want farmers to do, because actually they're going down the wrong path and they may be stopped or disencouraged from doing that later.
Yeah. And you also You also look at collaboration in the report. What signs are you looking for, I suppose, to see that collaboration is improving in the industry? And I suppose what I mean by that is across the supply chain. How confident are you at the moment that that collaborative approach will be pushed forward?
So we want collaborative working across landscape, because that gives multiple benefits. This collaborative working through supply chains, having conversations with some supermarkets and supply chains, they are very focused about where their future food production comes from, and food production and systems that deliver improvements to the landscape and to soil and biodiversity and carbon. So a regenerative or food from a healing landscape. There is going to be a lot of focus from the consumer wanting to know where their produce comes from. What is the effect, positive or negative, on our landscape from that food choice? Because it doesn't matter about what you eat, we all eat. And the supply chains, and especially some of the major supply chains, I think will quite rapidly move into purchasing from systems that do improvements. But we always have that caveat. Many are talking green language. We want to see green action.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about putting a fancy fake farm label on something and calling it wonderful. It's what's sick. We've got to prove what we're doing positively on our landscapes here in the UK, but also internationally, because we can export a positive trading system that delivers improvements. So we want to see that robustly delivered.
Yeah. And there's a real question of value there as well, isn't there? Because if you can actually measure your improvements on your land, how does that, and if that has a marketing edge as well for further up the supply chain, how does that value actually equate within the supply chain?
And whose value is it?
Yeah.
So particularly the carbon, I mean, who wants to offset what, and what's the value in the biodiversity? But we know produce, food that comes from healthier soil, is more nutritious. It's better for us. And we actually can eat less of it and get more vitamins and minerals. So we can produce slightly less volume, but have it more nutrient dense. And recognizing the benefits of food coming from healthier landscapes, I don't like to always use the word regenerative soils, but it is that rebuilding soil health and ecosystems around it, reducing inputs and making a more nutritious food product from those landscapes.
Yeah, so regenerative just means mainstream now, doesn't it?
Everyone's got a different interpretation from it and to it. I think it's about always doing systems improvements, soil health, biodiversity. I quite like the term heal at the moment, because we need to heal our soils and our landscape. We must recognise as farmers, we have done a lot of bad things in the past, and it hasn't always been farmers' fault. It's the policy and the supply chains ever driving change and cost reductions. But we've got to recognise lots of that's got to be recovered. We have a nature crisis. We need to put nature back in our landscapes. That's delivering for nature. We have a soil health and a carbon problem. We've lost a lot of our carbon from our soils. We need to put it back. So we need to heal the broken system we have, but not just in the UK. There's no point keeping our standards so high and then allowing produce that's coming in that is not as healthy for us to eat, but also has a bigger biodiversity and carbon footprint in other places around the world.
NFFN has a bit of a campaign running alongside this. Can you tell us a bit about the Rethink Farming campaign?
So it's about getting people onto farms and getting walking around and farm visits. So a number of us have opened up our farms. I've got my farm open on, I think, Sunday the 14th in the morning, and a number of us have. So it's about that engagement with public and other farmers, engaging with policymakers and explaining what Rethink Farming is all about. And it's this progressive steps. And we've got 7 weeks of campaigns, and each week's themed, running up to into December. And then we've got some more work going to happen in the new year with the next step and more delivery.
Brilliant. It's also a perfect opportunity to give a plug to the new upcoming series of the NFFN podcast, which I'm co-presenting alongside the brilliant Will Evans. And in this series, we're going to be focusing on Rethink Farming. So make sure you subscribe to the Nature Friendly Farming Network podcast if you don't already, wherever you listen. Martin, just while I've got you, obviously there's a lot going on at the moment. What's next for the network, and also what have you got going on the ground on your farm?
So I start with the network. we're actually 1st of November. It's 4 years since we first had our first meeting, and then we launched in.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I remember that day.
the speed of what the network's growing across the UK and the engagement we have with governments, policymakers, farmers, other organisations has been phenomenal. We've been very lucky to receive some good funding support to help that grow. So we have 7 members of staff now across the UK. The more we grow, the more the engagement grows. So it's about managing that. But it really is doing that knowledge exchange and demonstrating what farmers are and giving farmers, the whole point of the network was to give farmers a voice who are delivering, who are nature friendly, who are delivering a landscape approach, care about the biodiversity. Do that to farmers. We've got membership to public, we can communicate, and the policymakers and other organisations. So it's more of that connecting up. And we've got various, Oxford Real Farming Conference will be there again. And we've got some various projects and reports that will be launched then to really step up the delivery and the urgency of making farming work for biodiversity and climate and the profitability. And I've been staggered by the engagement we've had. It takes all my time, plus some nowadays, and many of our other farmers across the network. But it's a moment in time. We need to harness and we see value being delivered. I see a lot of policy coming out that I see direct quotes or information that the network sent stuff in, and they're right across the UK. So we're having a positive benefit. And I really want to see that grow. And we're seeing membership grow daily, which I think is brilliant. So farmers, members of the public and organisations. And on our farm, still going down that healing route, regenerative routes. We don't cultivate, introducing more livestock. I've put herbal lays in this year on a small field to see how that works. We already have sheep coming in over winter. I want to get some cattle in next year. How do I do a mobbed grazed, moving livestock about, cattle? What's the effect? Because I need to build fertility up in the soil, not from a bag, but from the bum, and from compost and other things. And I'm recognising actually biodiversity is not about around the outside of fields, it's about in the centre. So we're subdividing all my fields now into 120 metres. I run on a 30 metre sprayer. So I have 4 tram lines, so it's up, down twice, 6 metre margins, 4 metres of flowers in the centre, a metre of grass either side. We cut and remove the flowers at the end of the season, but I've always got permanent habitat. That's when I'm doing my mob grazing, I can use those avenues to roll the mob grazing system down. So I'm really interconnecting my whole landscape. And much of this is going out of schemes now because I can't wait for schemes to happen. But I recognise the benefit of predatory insects, pollinators, and other stuff in my landscape. So I just want to get on with this now. We've got more trees coming in. We've got a community scheme coming in the end of the month, planting 650 metres of new hedgerow. We're getting 100 volunteers coming in to help do that through Possible. And it's about, let's take action. As farmers, we can do things, but we also must communicate that to the consumers and to the public and my neighbourhood and my community to show them what we can deliver.
Martin, you're always an inspiration. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
That is all we have time for today. I realise it is a shorter episode than normal, but huge thanks to my guest, Martin Lyons, and thank you for listening. Please do subscribe to the show and give it a comment. That really helps with letting more listeners know about the show. Next week, I'll be bringing you some content from the Farm Business Innovation Show in Birmingham, which I'm heading to later this week. But until then, have a great week.